Hi, everyone. My name is Lena DeTar, and I'm an Associate Clinical Professor of Shelter Medicine and Community Medicine at Cornell University. This talk is based on a project we started in 2024 and a paper that's being featured in JAVMA as the June article in their Service Learning series. In 2024, our program, which provides veterinary services through teaching to shelters and our community, we're facing three substantial problems. The first problem is we had several communities that were overrun with cats. People like cats, they like to help cats, so they feed cats. And then cats multiply, and you can't stop feeding cats once they're there because you can't starve them. So communities become overrun, like this particular neighborhood in the county that I live in. And with large populations of cats come welfare impacts like infectious diseases such as panleukopenia, tomcats killing kittens, death and dying on people's porches and front yards, which really impacts their quality of life, not to mention destruction and nuisance behaviors by the cats. This community in particular knew they had a big problem, but they had very few resources. They barely had enough money for the food, not enough money for spay-neuter with general practitioners. They didn't have reliable transportation time or energy to take cats to the shelter for spay-neuter, and they really weren't working with each other. They'd asked local animal shelter, SPCA, to help out, but they didn't like how it was being provided, and some neighbors started springing traps that were set out for TNR cats. In 2022, one resident tried to take matters into his own hands and poisoned some cats with ethylene glycol. Animal control at the shelter got involved at that point. Around 6 to 7 cats, we believe, died. But it was bad even beyond the poisoning. One resident said that she'd fostered 100 cats a year, but was denied intake appointments by the shelter, while another described burying kittens by the dozen, 60 kittens a year for the last 5 years. So to orient you, New York is a large state. So we're actually closer to here in Ithaca, closer to New York City, closer to Canada than New York City. This is an area with small towns and small rural shelters, including this one, the one that we contract with in our county. It is a small shelter, so they have limited surgical appointments, limited housing, an intake of about 1,000 cats a year. The mission is to help everyone, but their mandate is actually to provide dog control and humane law enforcement. Spay-neuter spots for community-owned pets and those in the shelter are available. There's some TNR, but it's pretty haphazard. And animal control helps out. They help out when the cats were being poisoned, but having cats everywhere and having cats living on your porch and dying isn't against the law. And there really is no funding in this community for TNR. The other issue that we were dealing with, so of course Ithaca, New York, happens to be home for Cornell University, where 120 students a year go through a 4-year post-bachelor's training program to become a veterinarian. And through this program, students are guaranteed 1 cat spay during their 3rd year, their junior cat spay. And then it depends on if they track large or small animal and the externships they pick in terms of what other surgical experiences they get. As we know, students need practice doing something several times over to become competent at it. And at this time, the primary care surgery was only offered for small animal track students, and they only did 2 or 3 dog surgeries per week. So a well-equipped small animal student would graduate with 5, perhaps, dog surgeries and 1 cat spay total. And the AVMA has decided that graduates should be day 1 ready, meaning they should be ready to do surgery as a veterinarian when they graduate, and students didn't feel like their experiences were enough to give them this competency. So what we wondered was whether we could go after all 3 problems at once. All of them involved our area of expertise, teaching students how to do surgery, serving our community and the shelter that we contract with, but we needed to do it right. So that meant targeting. Cat reproduction is kind of like a contagious disease. You need to have herd immunity to prevent transmission or pregnancy, if you're going to keep up with the analogy. We live in a semi-rural area, and so our cats are actually in little clusters of populations, which helps us. Within that community, in order to achieve maintenance, you need to sterilize about 75% of those cats. And you can change that number by sterilizing more cats or by removing cats from the general population through adoption or euthanasia. So what we did, we drew boundaries around the neighborhood based on our neighborhood conversations and a walkthrough. We got a rough estimate of the number of cats, where they were hanging out, where they were being fed. we spent time listening to the community about what they needed to make this successful. So they had two major requests: no animal control, and the cats shouldn't stay outside overnight. Well, we couldn't promise no animal control, but we did create a group of invested SPCA volunteers to put their face forward when communicating with neighborhoods, while the ACOs provided backup transportation, trapping, etc. And then we couldn't do what we needed to do here in terms of volume in this SPCA surgery suite, which is super tiny, and we needed a bigger space. So we worked with the Cornell CVM's fourth year coordinator and got the junior surgery space so we could have 6 tables going at a time. And then we had induction and recovery in a connected room. Remote shelter staff kept up with our records, so we used smartphone photo uploads of paper records to put into our animal management system to keep track of all the cats. The night before surgery, we posted signs that we were trapping, so neighbors knew not to put food out and knew why all these strange folks were lurking in their neighborhood. We brought cats to campus for overnight housing as soon as they were captured, per requests of the residents. We did surgery and preventives for all of the cats that we were able to catch that were over 2 pounds. And then we sent cats that were under 2 pounds to foster and gave them preventives, and then eventually got them into surgery by the time they hit 2 pounds, so 1 kilo. So what we did in surgery, we did just-in-time training for students, since many of them hadn't had any training since their junior year. So we met in the very early morning before the clinic and did a quick review. We went over safety and CPR and time-saving, high-quality, high-volume surgery techniques with basic models to practice on. Faculty were one-on-one with students with open abdomens in the surgery suite, so anybody who was being spayed or cryptorch and neuter. And then we supervised closed neuters in singles or in pairs of cats. Our program technicians ran anesthesia with student gophers. And to meet the time limits needed to safely return the cats to their community, we kept each student surgery to 30 minutes from cut to close. Because we wanted to see if this was a worthwhile program, we asked students how it went for them in a student survey. More than 1/3 of the class attended our clinics, and many of them reported having performed no other surgery at all besides their preclinical junior cat spay milestone. 10 students without prompting wrote about a lack of available surgical experiences. One of them said, "I would have felt inadequate graduating vet school having only spayed 1 cat, never using a spay hook, and never having neutered a cat." Other themes included the helpfulness of the pre-surgery skills laboratory, the one-on-one surgery instruction, and gaining confidence. More students performed surgery at the college, and students in 2024 reported performing significantly more surgeries than the previous year. The impact of targeted TNR programs for shelters often show significant drops in kitten intakes and euthanasia from those target neighborhoods. For this shelter, we did not see a drastic change. These 2 bars represent the student surgery project, but the shelter did continue to provide services throughout the summer to student residents from this neighborhood, and took in a lot of socialized kittens from the trapping volunteer group and did spay neuter on those cats. And intake from this neighborhood actually increased in 2024 and 2025 over 2023. The other thing that changed was the age demographics of kittens coming in before the project. It was all very young kittens. So you can see this sort of graph coming down like that in 2023. In 2025, the year following the clinic, we saw more older cats and fewer younger cats, representing a healthier cat population spread. Some of that was more capacity for foster in the community and to do with our TNR volunteers. We also did see a difference in euthanasias from this target community between before and after the program, but these were admittedly already very small numbers, so 11 cats were euthanized in 2023 and 6 in 2025. Our most important results came out of the interviews we did with residents of the target community the following year. Before the project, things were, and I quote, out of control. So many kittens. Litters were being born almost every time you blinked. One resident, as I mentioned, described fostering hundreds of cats, while another described burying cats by the dozen, 60 cats a year. They all saw a major difference in the year after the project. "It's just absolutely incredible," one of them said. All reported kitten numbers were down. The resident that fostered only fostered 20 kittens. Another did not have to bury even 1 kitten. 3 respondents reported positive changes in their attitude towards the SPCA of Tompkins County. "You have to realize they only do so much and they're only so big. This helps people understand exactly how much the SPCA does." And then finally, residents were very optimistic compared to previous times that we talked to them. They really appreciated, and I quote, people coming in and saying, hey, we care about this. We see that this is a problem and we want to help. It just changed the dynamics of it all. One resident found it was really cool to get to work with different people who have different connections and different roles on all these teams. Another one was proud to be part of it and everybody that was involved in it and wanted to see this spread. Finally, one respondent felt the project had created stronger relationships within the neighborhood residents. It is unclear to me whether we managed to reach that 75%, but I will say that the impact really seemed to be keenly felt by members of the community. We did actually continue to provide services for this community in 2025, and then we did another 95 cats via TNR and took in 70 cats for that same neighborhood. There were probably a lot more than 250 cats originally, but we think that we've managed to get the denominator low enough where we are seeing, we think, again, qualitative research, some reductions in numbers of cats. Certainly they feel a lot of relief that the problems were lessening and feel more supported. Why was there no huge impact for the shelter? I think because the impacts were being felt in the community instead of the shelter. The shelter has managed admissions, and they are actually pretty good at keeping cats out of the shelter when they don't have the capacity to take care of them. But that did contribute to a mismatch between the community needs and the shelter services that were being provided. And it seems that we may now be meeting those needs within the capacity of the shelter. And so there are no kittens that are getting left behind and dying in the neighborhood. We also, a great benefit of this project was that we have a new cadre of trained TNR trappers, which has been really huge. Kitten season last year at the SPCA was really quite a lot better than the previous year in terms of numbers. And this year, it started really late, but is going on strong now. In terms of the students, this was a great proof of concept in terms of getting students surgery from free-roaming cat populations. Volunteers were able to secure enough cats. There was minimal trap-retrap thanks to microchipping and ear tipping. They all had enough cats to get meaningful surgery experiences. They didn't complain about early mornings or time limits that we put on them. And the cats that we released did really well. Plans are being made for a third year of this project involving the students, but there are other really exciting curricular changes that we're making where we may be able to fold this into other parts of the curriculum so other clinicians don't need to release students so that they can attend these clinics from their other rotations. The biggest threat to this project and projects like this is the same biggest threat in animal welfare, and that is funding. We did spend about $8,000 to $8,500 US per year on this project, but because it was a teaching project, that allowed us to unlock teaching grants and resources that were critical for success. We did step on a lot of toes that first year and the second year as well, and we don't know if that funding is going to continue to be available this year. Things are actually pretty tight right now, even in Ivy League institutions. And then, volunteers are amazing and wonderful, but they're seen in this photo here, but we don't know if they're going to want to continue to spend all their time and energy trapping cats and building them houses and interfacing with the neighborhood. We also thought that the other thing that made this project really successful was checking in with the neighborhood residents and making sure that we could meet their needs the way that they wanted them to be met and not just what we thought was important for those cats. And so we need to continue to be able to continue to talk to communities and check in with them to make sure that we're helping them how they need to be helped, both the people and the cats that they care for. So here's the QR code if you'd like to check out our paper, or it will be in the paper issue for June with the rhino on the front. My email address is here and the address of our program if you'd like to get in touch with us. I thank you so much for taking time to listen to us today.